If you ask the most successful producers in the world on what is the most important thing in music, maybe 10 out of 10 would say the emotion. And what really sets the emotion of any track is the chord progression. So the chord progression is the most important thing when it comes to songwriting. So this video is for EDM producers who want to learn how to master chord progressions and how it is implemented in the most trending EDM genres today, like Afro House, Tech House, Melodic Techno, Modern Deep House, Future Rave, and the good old Progressive House. I will show you one good chord progression for each of these subgenres, and I am sure you gotta learn something and be entertained with this video. But first you need to know what a chord actually is. So one note is a note, two notes is an interval, and at least three notes is a chord. And the most basic thing about chords, what you probably need to know is that there are two ways of chords. There are major chords that tend to sound more happy, and there are minor chords that sound more melancholic. And there is a super easy technique for people that don't know music theory on how to find out if your chord is in major or minor. First, write in a note, doesn't matter which one. Then you count 7 half notes up. This way, you created an interval which works all the time, and it is neutral. That means it isn't major or minor because the third note in the middle really decides the mood of your chord. So if you count 3 notes up and delete these, you have these 2 half note spaces. Every time you have a space of 2 notes in between of your low and middle note, it is a minor chord and sounds melancholic. If you now put that middle note 1 half note up like this, you have 3 notes space in between your low and middle note, which transform a minor chord into a major chord, which sounds more happy. And guys, that is the most simple thing you need to remember when making chords. If you have these little things in your brain, you can really start messing around with chords. So let's now go full into it and make our first chord progression that should fit the Afro House vibe. I imagine something melancholic and somewhat deep, so I start with a minor chord. I press whatever, the E for example. I count 7 notes up and have the interval, and now I make it a minor chord. My ears tell me I need to go down. And here a major chord works. Here I go down again and also make a major chord. If you're unsure if you have to make a minor or major chord, just try the notes in between technique I showed you before and trust your ears on what sounds good. We can step it up a bit by selecting the middle note and lift it up an octave by pressing STRG up. And to make it sound even better, I like to add 1 note more in between. And I don't think about theory right here, I just press in a note I think sounds good. Now let's also take the bass notes of our chord and let it play an octave lower. And we are done with our progression. And to show you that these progression works really well with Afro House, I made these little track real quick. Now we coming to the chord progression for a tech house track. Guys, tech house isn't really a melodic genre, but of course it has some of a progression. I want something that sounds faster and more energetic and weird. I first go for D, C, F, and A because these progressions sound somewhat, I don't know, carefree I guess. And as before, I make an interval first and then I build a chord by adding the third note in between. I guess that's it. It's a super simple progression that is easily suitable for a tech house track. And I probably just use the bass notes of this progression, not the full chords. Not gonna lie, this sounds kinda hard. Now we're making something more melodic again. We're making something similar to Anima, which is melodic techno. We want a progression that sounds more mysterious. To do so, we going A, F, D, and E. As always, I start with the bass notes, and then I proceed to build the chords out of it. In the end, we need a major chord to really give it that kind of unexpected, mysterious feel. And I also put the middle notes an octave up. And let's hear if these progression fits with melodic techno. Awesome. No, we go into modern deep house, kind of like the style of Fred again. I will choose A sharp, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. This progression is maybe the most used in modern music, and it is sounding very poppy. Let's give it a quick listen. It's just the progression your brain wants to hear and expects. Let's add the bass notes also. And guys, I will switch up the last bass note to make it feel a bit more advanced and thought of. And I think we could add a top note to give it even more depth. I made a quick modern deep house track with these exact progression. Let's listen. For the next chord progression, we want to make something that sounds kind of haunting because we make something for future rave. A lot of future rave tracks have only one chord the entire track because that really gives you the tension. But for this tutorial, we step it up a bit and we're making two chords. I start with a basic minor chord, A sharp minor for example. And here I go down to F sharp. This one is a major chord. If you make it major or minor right here doesn't really matter because I think for these future rave track I only use the bass notes of the progression either way. And after a couple minutes spending some time making a bass line and an arpeggiated melody with these chords, we have a proper future rave idea like this. And my friends, now we are coming to the last chord progression, which should fit to the emotional festival style, like Martin Garrix does a lot. His style is not only happy or emotional, it is also very anthemic and marvelous very often. So I try to achieve something like this. So we go B, D, F sharp, and A. And for the chords, I'm not going to go by the method I showed in the beginning of this tutorial. Guys, because I'm not a music theory expert, I do a lot of my chords just by ear. And as these progression is more advanced than the others, I don't really can explain to you what I am doing honestly. But it can be also an inspiration for you to not go by book all the time. Try to be creative and just express yourself. And out of these progression, I made a pretty nice break section of an emotional festival track. And guys, if you wanted to really learn the technique how to make chords without music theory, I just made a PDF tutorial where the exact steps are listed for you in a very easy way so you can look it up and really learn these techniques for yourself. I even included all the MIDI files of these chords shown in the video, so you can also try them out and use them for your own tracks. First link in the description. And I don't have anything more to say than thank you for watching. I love you all.